He claimed me without asking, but my wolf betrayed me first. A werewolf romance audiobook. The first scream ripped through the silence like glass shattering in the night. I froze, breath caught in my throat, my entire body rigid as the sound echoed through the dense trees of Hollow Creek. For a heartbeat, everything stilled, even the wind seemed to pause, holding its breath with me. Then instinct took over. I ran. The forest was a living thing beneath the blood-red moon, shadows stretching like claws across the damp earth, branches snapping as my boots pounded the undergrowth. The storm had been threatening for hours, the air thick and heavy with the scent of wet pine, moss, and something else beneath it, sharp, metallic, like rust and rain. Lily's scream. I was sure of it. 2 nights. 2 whole nights since my sister disappeared, and no one had found a trace. The police had given up at sunset, mumbling about wild animals and unstable ground, but I couldn't walk away. Not when I'd found her. Broken phone on the trail earlier today, its cracked screen smeared with dirt and something darker. My flashlight trembled in my grip, its weak beam darting frantically between the towering pines. The deeper I went, the thicker the fog became, curling low around my ankles like restless ghosts. That was when I noticed it. The silence. It wasn't the normal kind of quiet you get deep in the woods. No distant owl calls, no crickets, not even the whisper of wind. It was the kind of silence that screams at you to run because something is out there listening. I slowed, my chest rising and falling sharply, and turned in a slow circle. Lily? My voice cracked, weak and unsure, sounding small against the weight of the forest. No answer. Then I heard it, a low guttural growl rolling through the mist. The sound wasn't close, but it wasn't far either, and it didn't belong to anything normal. The fine hairs on the back of my neck rose. My grip on the flashlight tightened until my knuckles burned. I took one cautious step backward, my boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until a sharp rustling burst from the trees to my right. I spun, beam swinging wildly, and that's when I saw them. Eyes, 2 glowing orbs of molten gold, piercing through the darkness like fire trapped in glass. They were fixed on me, unblinking, steady, and terrifyingly intelligent. Then it stepped forward, and my lungs forgot how to work. The creature emerged from the mist, massive and sleek, its shoulders rippling with muscle beneath a coat of dark gray fur that gleamed silver in the moonlight. Its size was staggering. It wasn't just a wolf, it was impossibly big, easily the height of my chest, maybe taller if it stood on its hind legs. My first thought was to run. My second was that running wouldn't matter. Its paws made no sound on the forest floor as it stalked closer, slow and deliberate, each movement radiating lethal control. My flashlight slipped from my sweaty grip and hit the dirt with a soft thud, plunging me into a darkness so complete I could barely see anything but those burning eyes. I stumbled backward, my heel catching on a root, and went down hard. A sharp gasp tore from me as my palms scraped against damp leaves and stones. I crawled backward instinctively, never taking my eyes off the beast. It growled low, deep, a sound that vibrated through my bones like thunder rolling inside my chest. This was it. I was going to die. But then, something strange happened. The wolf stopped. Just a few feet from me, it stilled completely. Golden eyes locked on mine with an intensity that rooted me to the spot. There was no wild hunger in its gaze, no blind rage. Something in me knew. It was studying me, and then, for the briefest flash, lightning tore open the sky, illuminating the clearing in white light, and I swore I saw him. Not the beast. A man. A silhouette burned into my vision. Tall, broad-shouldered, his bare chest streaked with rain and shadows, his dark hair plastered to his temples. His golden eyes glowed like embers beneath the storm's fury. I blinked, and the vision vanished. The wolf was there again, snarling softly, but something had shifted. Suddenly, the night exploded. From behind me, a new shadow lunged into the clearing. Another wolf larger than the first, its fur black as ink and its eyes burning crimson. The golden-eyed wolf spun, teeth bared, and the two collided with bone-cracking force. The air filled with a violent symphony of snarls, snapping jaws, and tearing flesh. The sound was primal, raw, animalistic, and yet there was something almost human in it, something personal, as though this was more than survival. I dropped lower to the ground, covering my head as the fight raged feet away, the ground trembling beneath their weight. The golden-eyed wolf was faster than anything should be, dodging lunges with a grace that was almost unnatural. But the black wolf was brutal, relentless, its strikes meant to kill. And then, for one fleeting second, the golden-eyed wolf looked back at me. Just one look. I don't know how I understood it, but I did. It wasn't just instinct. It wasn't just fear. It was a command. Run. My body obeyed before my mind did. I scrambled to my feet and tore through the trees, my lungs burning, branches whipping across my face as I stumbled over roots and rocks. Behind me, I could still hear them, the snarls, the screams, the ripping of flesh, but I didn't dare look back. I didn't stop until the forest broke open and the rotting old Hollow Creek bridge loomed ahead, its wooden planks groaning under my weight as I staggered across. When I reached the other side, I finally turned, chest heaving, expecting to see them burst from the tree line. But there was nothing. And wolves. No fight, no sound, just the heavy mist curling low over the earth, swallowing the evidence of what I'd seen. That's when I felt it, a sudden, sharp heat beneath my collarbone, so intense it made me gasp. My hand shot to the spot, fingers pressing against my skin. It was smooth and broken but burning as though fire lived beneath it, and then I felt it, a raised curve beneath my fingertips. A mark. It hadn't been there before. I stood frozen, staring into the endless dark, knowing in my bones that whatever had happened tonight wasn't just a fight between animals. Something older, darker, wilder had woken up in Hollow Creek, and somehow, I'd been dragged into it. Somewhere deep in the shadows, I knew the golden-eyed wolf was still out there, watching me, claiming me without asking. I woke to silence, the kind of silence that doesn't feel like peace, but like the world is holding its breath. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered in the dampness of the air and the ache in my bones. For a moment, I didn't move, staring at the ceiling of my small Hollow Creek cabin, waiting for my racing heart to calm. Then the events of last night slammed into me like a tidal wave. The scream, the glowing eyes, the fight, the command that made my body run before my mind caught up. I shot upright, breath ragged, one hand pressed to my collarbone where the heat had burned through my skin. My fingers trembled as they brushed against the spot and froze. The raised edges of the mark were still there. I scrambled out of bed and stumbled toward the mirror above the dresser. The pale morning light, filtering through my curtains, was enough to catch the faint shimmer on my skin. Just below my collarbone, etched like silver fire beneath the surface, was a crescent-shaped mark, thin lines curling outward like ancient script. It pulsed faintly, as though alive. I reached out, touching it gently, and a shiver ran through me, heat sparking under my fingertips, spreading like wildfire through my veins. My knees buckled, and I clutched the dresser for balance, panting hard until the sensation faded. What the hell is happening to me? I whispered to my reflection, but the woman staring back had no answers, except she didn't look quite like me anymore. My skin seemed subtly different, my pupils slightly wider, my irises catching the light in a way I didn't remember. And my senses. I could hear birds outside, crisp, sharp, every wing beat distinct. The faint rush of the creek miles away brushed against my ears like a whisper. Even the heartbeat of a squirrel on the tree outside my window thudded faintly in the back of my mind. I stumbled back, clutching the edge of the dresser, my chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. This isn't real. This isn't possible. My phone buzzed violently on the nightstand, jolting me from my thoughts. I lunged for it, praying it was Lily. Lily? Oh my God. Where are you? I blurted as I answered. Her voice was broken, ragged, barely more than a whisper. Rain, you need to leave Hollow Creek, right now. I gripped the phone tighter, heart hammering. No. You don't get to disappear for days and then call me like this. Where are you? Are you hurt? I can't explain. Not yet. Her breath hitched uneven, like she'd been running. But listen to me, they know you were there last night. My voice cracked. Who the hell is they? There was silence on the other end for a long, stretching second. Then, you saw him, didn't you? She whispered, almost as if she was afraid to say it out loud. The one with the golden eyes. My throat closed. Lily, what's happening to me? You've been marked. Rain. Her voice trembled on the last word. That's why you need to suddenly. Muffled voices erupted in the background, deep, urgent, male. Lily gasped sharply, and the line went dead. Lily, I shouted into the dead silence, but it was useless. I stood frozen, my phone clutched tight in my shaking hand, a hollow ringing in my ears. My sister was alive, but she was scared. And she wasn't alone. That was when it happened, a sharp pull, low in my chest, as if something inside me had been hooked and yanked. I gasped, stumbling toward the window before I even realized I was moving, and then I saw him. A man stood at the edge of the tree line, across the road, half shrouded in mist and shadows. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his damp black shirt clinging to him like a second skin. His dark hair was tousled, the strands catching faint glints of morning light. But none of that mattered, because his eyes, golden, exactly like the wolf's, my breath caught, the world narrowing until it was just him and me. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. He simply watched me, and the weight of that gaze was suffocating, intense, like gravity had decided I belonged to him. I should have been terrified. I was terrified. And yet, beneath the fear, something else stirred. Something dangerous, magnetic, primal. I stepped out onto the porch before my brain could scream at me to stay inside. The boards creaked beneath my bare feet as I crossed the distance between us with hesitant steps, the cool morning air brushing my skin. When I finally found my voice, it came out unsteady. "Who are you?" The man's jaw tensed, his gaze locked on mine, and for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, in a voice deep and rough, carrying something wild beneath its calm surface, he said, "You shouldn't have been in the woods last night." "That's not an answer," I shot back, forcing strength into my shaking voice. "Who are you?" A muscle ticked in his jaw, like he was weighing his next words. Finally, Kale. The name was sharp and foreign, carrying weight, as though speaking it aloud invited danger into the world. I swallowed hard, my voice softening. You were there, weren't you? In the woods?" Something flickered across his expression, pain, anger, regret, I couldn't tell. But his golden eyes blazed brighter, pinning me where I stood. "Stay away from Hollow Creek," he said flatly, his voice edged with something unspoken, something broken. I frowned, heart hammering louder in my chest. "No, my sister is missing. I'm not going anywhere until I find her." For the first time, his gaze softened just slightly, almost imperceptibly. But whatever emotion crossed his face vanished as fast as it came. He straightened, stepping closer, and the air between us shifted, charged with a tension I couldn't name. That was when I noticed it, his pupils dilating, his nostrils flaring slightly, his chest rising with slow, deliberate breaths. It was subtle, but I felt it. He could smell me, or rather, my blood, my fear, my mark. Before I could move, before I could even breathe, he closed the remaining distance between us. His hand brushed against my arm, and the moment his skin touched mine, heat exploded through me like lightning. My knees went weak, breath catching in my throat. The mark beneath my collarbone burned like fire, alive and pulsing in time with his heartbeat, as though his body was calling to mine. Kale's jaw clenched as if he felt it too, but he pulled back sharply, forcing distance between us. "You need to stay inside," he said low, his voice hoarse. "Lock your doors. Don't open them for anyone, not even me." "Why?" I breathed. His gaze darted past me, toward the woods, his entire body tensing like a predator scenting danger. "They've found you," he said finally, his voice like steel wrapped in warning. "And they won't stop until they have you." Before I could ask who they were, Kale stepped back into the mist and was gone, swallowed by the trees with impossible speed. I stood frozen on the porch, my heart racing so violently I could hear it in my ears. The morning air pressed heavy against my skin, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly hunted. I didn't understand the mark. I didn't understand Kale, but I understood one thing very clearly. Whatever was happening in Hollow Creek, it had already claimed me. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was far from peaceful. It clung to the woods like a shroud, heavy and suffocating, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The damp earth smelled of rain and pine, mingling with something sharper iron, maybe blood, faint and unsettling. Lena walked carefully along the narrow path, her boots sinking slightly into the softened ground. Every sound seemed amplified, the crunch of wet leaves beneath her feet, the distant creak of tree branches, the occasional rustle in the underbrush. She wasn't sure if it was paranoia or instinct, but the feeling of being watched hadn't left her since the night she first saw him, the man with wild eyes and a presence that haunted her every waking thought. Eli. She had replayed their brief encounter endlessly in her mind, the strength in his grip when he pulled her away from danger, the way his piercing gaze seemed to look straight through her, and the strange unspoken recognition she felt deep in her chest, as though her very bones had whispered his name long before her lips did. And yet, he had vanished. For 3 days, Lena hadn't seen him, but she'd seen signs. Broken branches near her cabin, large paw prints in the mud where no dog could have wandered this far into the wilderness, shadows shifting between the trees when she turned her head to quickly. Tonight, however, she decided to stop running from the unease gnawing at her gut. She had to know. The forest thickened the deeper she went, the canopy above swallowing what little moonlight pierced through the clouds. A soft mist curled along the ground, swirling around her ankles as though alive. Somewhere distant, an owl cried a hollow, lonely sound. That's when she heard it. A twig snapped. Lena froze, her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she turned, her head scanning the darkened woods. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice steadier than she felt. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then, low and deep, came a growl. Not a dog's growl. This was primal. Lena's pulse surged. Her fingers tightened around the small flashlight in her hand, its weak beam slicing through the mist but revealing nothing. The growl came again, closer this time, vibrating through the air like a warning. And then, she saw them. 2 golden eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. Before she could react, a massive shape burst from the darkness, fur, teeth, claws, and her scream lodged in her throat. But before the creature reached her, something faster slammed into it with brutal force. The 2 shadows tumbled across the forest floor, snarling and thrashing, teeth flashing in the dim light. Lena stumbled backward, her heart hammering, until the fight stopped as suddenly as it began. One of the wolves, larger, darker, stronger, stood over the other, pinning it to the ground. The fallen wolf whimpered, then darted into the darkness, disappearing into the night. The victor turned to her. Her flashlight beam caught his face as he stepped forward, not fur, not beast, but Eli. His chest rose and fell with ragged breaths, his clothes torn, blood streaking down his jaw. His eyes still glowed faintly, golden and wild, and for the first time, she truly saw him for what he was. "Lena," he said, his voice low, gravelly, shaking not from fear, but restraint. "You shouldn't be here." Her breath came in shallow gasps. What was that, Eli? What the hell was that?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening, his gaze darting away as though searching for an answer that wouldn't shatter her world. "You need to go back to your cabin," he said finally, stepping closer. "It's not safe here. I'm not leaving until you tell me what's going on." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, almost too softly to hear, he whispered, "They're hunting you." Lena's stomach dropped. "Who?" she demanded. Though her voice cracked, his glowing gaze locked on hers, intense and unyielding. "Not who, what?" Before she could question him further, another howl ripped through the forest, sharp and chilling. It came from somewhere far off but not far enough. Eli flinched slightly, his muscles tensing, his posture shifting like a predator ready to strike. "They've scented you," he muttered under his breath, almost to himself. "I thought I had more time." Lena grabbed his arm, forcing him to face her. "Eli, you're scaring me. Tell me the truth." His breath was warm against the cold night air as he leaned close, his voice rough and trembling with something between anger and fear. "The truth," he said, "is that you're in the middle of a war you don't understand. And if you stay near me," his hand clenched into a fist at his side, "they'll never stop coming." Another howl answered the first. Louder, closer. The woods seemed to close in around them, the mist thickening until it felt like the night itself was breathing. Eli's hand brushed hers not by accident. She could feel the heat radiating from his skin, the steady thrum of power beneath it. "Stay close," he ordered, his voice low but firm. "No matter what happens, don't run. They'll chase you if you do." Lena nodded, even though her chest tightened with terror. Something deep inside her, the part she didn't want to name, the part that stirred whenever Eli was near, trusted him. Even now, when logic screamed that she should run far, far away. As they moved together through the woods, shadows darted between the trees, fast and silent, always just out of reach. Shapes that weren't entirely human, weren't entirely beast. Lena's throat went dry as she realized something terrible and inevitable. Whatever Eli was, he wasn't the only one, and some of them wanted her dead. The forest was restless tonight. The wind hissed through the trees as if carrying whispers from a world I wasn't meant to hear, 1,000 secrets tangled between shadows and silence. I hugged my coat tighter around me, my breath misting in the cold air as I walked the narrow trail that led back to my cabin. I shouldn't have stayed this late at the library, but the truth was, sleep had become a stranger lately. Every night since the accident with the rogue wolf, since the night I met him, my dreams were filled with fragments I couldn't explain, burning amber eyes, a deep growl that curled beneath my skin, and that strange pull, like something ancient within me was waking up. But tonight, the dreams didn't wait for sleep. They followed me into reality. A branch snapped behind me. I froze, not the casual kind of pause someone takes when they think they hear something. No, this was instinctual. My body locked, my breath caught in my throat, and every muscle braced for danger. Slowly, I turned my head, scanning the tree line. The moonlight was pale and thin, and the forest shadows moved like restless ghosts. Don't run. I spun at the sound of his voice, deep, velvet, commanding. Kellen. He stepped out from the darkness, his tall frame half hidden beneath a black coat, his hood drawn low enough that I couldn't see his expression. But even with his face obscured, I felt his presence like gravity itself had bent around him. I swallowed hard. You followed me? No, he said flatly, his voice carrying something between warning and regret. I found you. The words shouldn't have sent a shiver racing down my spine, but they did. I stepped back instinctively, trying to create distance, but his gaze, gods, those eyes locked onto mine, and I stopped breathing. Something unspoken hung in the silence. Then, softly, almost hesitantly, I asked, "What are you?" Kellen's jaw tensed beneath the hood, and his silence was louder than any confession. I expected denial, excuses, something to convince me I was wrong, but instead, he said nothing, and that silence was my answer. You should stay away from me, Arya, he said at last, voice low and rough, like he was forcing the words through clenched teeth. For your own sake. I clenched my fists. You keep saying that, and yet here you are, following me, finding me, watching me. His breath hitched, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I'd seen his hand tremble. Then, just as quickly, his composure snapped back into place, his face unreadable in the shadows. I told myself I wouldn't, he murmured, almost to himself. But the bond. He stopped, as though realizing he'd said too much. My heart skipped. The bond? Kellen's gaze darkened, but he didn't elaborate. Instead, he turned his head sharply, scanning the tree line like he'd heard something I couldn't. His nostrils flared subtly, his posture tense, his entire body coiled like a predator on edge. And then I heard it too, a low, guttural growl. It wasn't Kellen's. The sound came from somewhere deeper in the woods, rumbling like distant thunder, too animal to be human and too intelligent to be just animal. Kellen's voice hardened, losing the restraint he'd clung to moments before. Go home, now. I didn't move. What is that? His head snapped back to me, his hood falling just enough for me to see the sharp cut of his jaw and those glowing, inhuman amber eyes. Now, Arya. But I couldn't. My legs wouldn't obey. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body stood frozen, locked in his gaze, tethered by something far beyond fear. And then something else stepped into the clearing. Not quite wolf, not quite man. Its body was massive, its limbs twisted, its dark fur matted with streaks of blood. Its eyes burned an unnatural silver, locking onto me like prey, a rogue shifter. Kellen's coat hit the ground in one swift motion, and I finally saw him, the man beneath the mask. Power rippled under his shirt, every muscle honed, scarred, and lethal. His hands flexed, claws slicing through skin, as though his body couldn't contain what he was becoming. You shouldn't see this, he muttered, almost regretful, before his voice dropped into a guttural growl. And then, before my mind could process what was happening, Kellen shifted, bones cracked, skin split. The sound was violent and raw, yet strangely beautiful, like watching nature itself reclaim him. His body morphed, stretching, reshaping, fur bursting along his arms and chest until the man was gone, replaced by something primal and terrible. The wolf that stood before me was enormous, shadows clinging to its obsidian black fur, its amber eyes still unmistakably his. Power radiated from him, ancient and wild, and the air itself seemed to shiver in his presence. The rogue lunged. Kellen met it midair with a sound so savage it tore through the night, fangs flashing, claws raking, the forest exploding into chaos around them. The fight was brutal, quick, a blur of snapping jaws and ripping fur. I stumbled backward, falling against a tree, my heart hammering so hard it hurt. Within seconds, Kellen had the rogue pinned beneath him, his teeth buried deep in its throat until the growls turned into silence. Blood dripped onto the snow, steaming in the cold air. Kellen didn't move immediately. His chest heaved with heavy breaths, his wolf still crouched over the lifeless body, his amber gaze locked on me like I was the next threat, but I didn't run. I couldn't. Somehow, I knew deep in my bones that he wouldn't hurt me. Finally, he stepped back, his body shifting again, skin reclaiming fur, bones snapping back into place until the man stood before me once more, bare-chested and trembling. His chest rose and fell sharply, his breathing ragged, his hands still slick with blood. My voice came out as a whisper, shaky and broken. "You're one of them." Kellen's gaze softened, just barely, and for the first time, he didn't deny it. "I told you to stay away," he said hoarsely, "because now, it's too late." The forest was silent, but in that silence, I felt it something ancient. Awakening, something binding us in ways I didn't yet understand. Whatever this was, whatever he was, my world would never be the same again. The forest was silent to silent, not even the crickets dared to sing beneath the heavy, pulsating light of the blood moon. Its crimson glow filtered through the skeletal branches, washing the earth in a haunting scarlet haze. I should have turned back the moment I crossed the tree line, but something pulled me deeper. Every instinct screamed danger, yet my feet disobeyed me, crunching softly against the frost-laden ground. The air tasted metallic, damp, and charged with something primal, like the earth itself was holding its breath. "Leela," I froze. My name, spoken in a deep, velvety tone that rolled like distant thunder. It wasn't possible. I hadn't told anyone where I was going, not even myself, really. Slowly, I turned, expecting an empty clearing, but he was there. Kellen. Or maybe, not Kellen. His silhouette emerged from the shadows like a beast freed from its cage. His usual calm was gone. His chest heaved as if he were restraining something violent inside him. The moonlight painted his sharp jaw in blood-red hues, and his eyes burned gold, almost feral. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped, his voice rough, strained, as though he was fighting against himself. I swallowed hard, forcing my trembling legs to hold me upright. Kellen, what's happening to you?" He stepped forward, and instinctively, I stepped back. The heat radiating from his body clashed violently with the icy forest air, and suddenly, I realized just how dangerous he was, not just to others, but to me. "Leela." His breath was ragged, his words breaking apart. "The blood moon, it makes the beast stronger." "I can't." His sentence dissolved into a sharp growl, his hand clutching his chest as if he was trying to contain the wolf clawing beneath his skin. Then from somewhere deep in the woods, a howl split the night long, low and aching with hunger. Kellen's head snapped toward the sound, and for a second, I swore I saw his pupils narrow into thin, predatory slits. "They're coming," he said hoarsely, stepping closer, his shadow swallowing mine. "You need to leave, now." But I didn't move. I couldn't. "Who's coming?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He hesitated, his jaw clenching. Finally, his gaze locked onto mine, molten and furious. "My pack." The weight of those two words hit me like a stone to the chest. "The same pack," he said, voice low, dangerous, "that would tear you apart if they knew what I'd done. What we've done. You don't belong in this world, Leela. Not yet. Not tonight." Before I could respond, another howl echoed closer this time. Then to more, overlapping, restless, hungry. My stomach dropped as the sound vibrated through the earth beneath my boots. "Kellen," I whispered, gripping his arm, "we have to hide." He didn't argue. Instead, his hand found mine, large, calloused, burning with heat, and before I knew it, we were running, weaving through the gnarled forest as the blood moon's glow painted our shadows across the ground. Branches clawed at my arms, roots threatened to pull me under, but Kellen never faltered, his grip unyielding. Behind us, the howls multiplied, splintering into chaotic echoes that made the forest feel alive with predators. Finally, he dragged me behind a cluster of jagged rocks near a frozen stream, crouching low, pulling me close against his chest. I could feel his heart pounding like a trapped animal. "Stay quiet," he murmured, his lips brushing the shell of my ear, sending shivers through me despite the danger. "No matter what you hear, don't move." And then, the forest fell into a suffocating silence. For a heartbeat, I thought maybe we'd lost them, but then I smelled it, iron and musk, and before I could brace myself, A figure dropped from the trees above, landing in front of us with inhuman grace. The wolf shifter stood in the crimson glow, taller than Kellen, his chest bare and scarred, his eyes burning the same molten gold Kellen's had moments ago, but colder, crueler. Kellen, the stranger snarled, his voice guttural, his lips curling back to reveal sharp canines. You broke the oath. Kellen rose slowly, stepping in front of me like a shield, his body tense, trembling with barely restrained fury. Leave her out of this, Kellen growled, his voice deeper now, layered with something inhuman. The stranger's gaze shifted to me, his nostrils flaring. His expression twisted into something between hunger and disgust. She's human, he said with a mocking laugh. You risked everything for her? Do you even know what she'll cost you? I said. Kellen snarled, his voice cracking, as his claws began to unsheath from his fingertips. Leave her, the stranger grinned, stepping closer. You can't protect her, brother. Not from us. Not from the prophecy. My breath caught. Prophecy? I whispered before I could stop myself. The stranger's smile widened, sharp and cruel. Oh, he hasn't told you? Kellen's jaw tightened, and in that silence, I had my answer. Something slammed deep inside. My chest, fear, betrayal, and confusion colliding all at once. Before I could demand an explanation, another howl erupted from the shadows, so close now that it made the earth tremble beneath us. Kellen grabbed my hand again, his voice harsh, urgent. Run, Leela. But this time, I wasn't sure if he meant from them or from him. The night was still, too still. The forest behind the cabin had fallen into a silence so deep it pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. A thin layer of fog slithered across the damp earth, curling around my boots as if the shadows themselves wanted to hold me in place. I leaned against the railing of the porch, hugging my arms around myself. The air was sharp and cold, carrying the faint, wild scent of pine and something else. Something I'd come to associate with him. Ronan. Even his name felt dangerous on my lips. He had kept his distance since the night I'd stumbled into his secret, since I saw him shift beneath the light of the blood moon. But staying away from him hadn't lessened the pull, the invisible tether between us that seemed to grow stronger with every passing hour. I should have been afraid. I should have run. But something deep inside, something primal, whispered that I belonged here. With him. I heard footsteps behind me before I sensed his presence. You shouldn't be out here alone. Ronan's deep voice rumbled softly, sending an involuntary shiver down my spine. I turned, and there he was standing in the doorway, shadows clinging to his broad shoulders like an extension of himself. The moonlight kissed the sharp edges of his jaw, highlighting the faint scar running along his cheek. His dark hair was damp, as though he'd just returned from a run, and his chest rose and fell steadily beneath his black Henley shirt. I can take care of myself, I said, even though we both knew it wasn't true. His gaze swept over me, sharp, unreadable, and yet full of something that made my throat tighten. He stepped forward, closing the distance between us, and the wooden porch groaned beneath his weight. You're human, he said flatly, stopping only a breath away. Out here, that makes you pray. The word pray sent a chill down my spine. But I forced myself to meet his eyes, those strange silver-tinged irises that seemed to glow faintly under the moonlight. Then why keep me here? I asked quietly. If I'm so vulnerable, if I'm such a liability, why not let me go? For a moment, the only sound was the soft whisper of the wind. Ronan's jaw tensed, and when he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough, as though it cost him something to say it. Because I can't. I froze, my heart stuttering in my chest. You can't, or you won't. I breathed, my voice trembling just slightly. His hand twitched at his side, as if resisting the urge to touch me. I've tried to stay away from you. Gods know I've tried, but it doesn't matter how far I go or how hard I fight it. My wolf, he wants you. The words sank into me like fire, burning through every wall I'd built around my heart. My wolf. I swallowed hard, trying to make sense of what he was admitting. You mean, it's not just you? He shook his head slowly, his gaze locking onto mine with an intensity that rooted me in place. It's both of us. The man, the beast. Neither of us can stay away. I should have been terrified, a sane person would have been, but instead, I felt that same strange pull tighten like an invisible thread between us. Every instinct screamed at me to move closer, even as my mind warned me to stay away. Ronan dragged in a breath, forcing himself to look away as his fists clenched tightly. But it's wrong, he rasped. You don't belong in this world. Little one, you're not like us. You don't understand the danger. I stepped closer before I realized I'd moved at all, closing the remaining inches between us. Then make me understand, I whispered, my voice steady despite the storm. Raging inside me, show me. His head snapped toward me, his expression torn pain, desire, and restraint all fighting for dominance across his face. For a heartbeat, I thought he'd pull away, but instead, his control slipped. He reached up and cupped my face, his hand rough and warm against my cheek. Careful what you ask for, he murmured, his voice a velvet growl that sent sparks racing through me. My breath hitched, and the world around us seemed to fade. The fog, the silence, the shadows until there was only him. Then, without warning, his thumb brushed along my jaw, and his forehead pressed lightly to mine. The heat of his breath mingled with mine, and I could feel the tremor in his body as he fought something I didn't fully understand. You deserve safety, he whispered hoarsely. A normal life, someone who can give you peace, not this. I shook my head faintly, refusing to let him pull away. Peace isn't what I want, I admitted, my voice barely more than a breath. He went rigid, and I could feel his wolf stirring beneath his skin, a wild, restless energy radiating from him in waves. The silence stretched between us, thick with everything unspoken, until finally, he spoke the words I knew were clawing at his throat. You're mine, Ronan said, his voice raw, reverent, and broken all at once. The moment hung between us, fragile and dangerous, until a distant howl tore through the night long, haunting, and close enough to make my stomach drop. Ronan's head snapped toward the sound, his silvered eyes darkening. Instantly, they've found us, he muttered under his breath. I frowned. Who? He looked back at me, his expression cold now, his earlier tenderness swallowed by something sharp and deadly. The Nightfang Pack, he said, his voice like ice. And they're not here to talk. Before I could respond, Ronan grabbed my wrist firm but not painful and pulled me toward the cabin. His movements were quick, controlled, but I could feel the tension vibrating through him. Stay behind me, he ordered, his voice dropping into the deep, guttural register I was beginning to recognize as his wolf bleeding through. Spike, and the distant howl of rogue wolves gnawed at my nerves like an unrelenting predator. Kellen's hand gripped mine tightly, firm but not crushing. His amber eyes scanned every inch of the forest, sharp and alert, a predator always on edge. But there was something else there too, tension, restraint, as if he carried a secret too heavy to speak. Kellen, what just happened back there? My voice cracked despite my attempts to remain calm. Why are they hunting us? Why me? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stopped at the edge of a small clearing and crouched, his hand brushing a low branch aside to reveal the ground. There were prints, massive, sharp, unmistakable. And in the center, a strange symbol etched into the dirt, a circle with jagged lines cutting through it like lightning. They know you're here, he said finally, his voice low and measured. And not just that they know about us. I stared at him, confusion and fear mixing into a bitter taste in my mouth. Us? Kellen, what do you mean by us? He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair, frustration flickering across his sharp features. You're tied to me, Lena. The bond between us. It isn't just about you being my mate. It connects you to my bloodline, my pack. And there are factions within the pack who won't accept that. They see you as a threat. A chill ran down my spine. Threat? To who? To what? Kellen's jaw tightened. To everything I've worked for. To the balance between the packs. Some of them, they've been planning this for a long time. They see you as a tool, or worse, a weapon against me. I took a step back, shaking my head. I don't understand. I'm human. I'm not a part of this. I can't be. You already are, Kellen said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Every heartbeat of yours, every instinct, every drop of blood, it's tied to mine now. You feel it too, don't you? That pull, that connection that won't let us go? I couldn't deny it. My chest ached, my pulse matched his, and deep down, a fire burned, one that I had tried to ignore. I nodded faintly, unable to speak. Kellen's expression softened for a moment, the hard edge of the alpha replaced by a rare vulnerability. I didn't want you involved in this, but it's too late. And now, he hesitated, his jaw flexing as if forcing himself to contain a surge of emotion. Now they want to break us apart, permanently. Before I could ask what he meant a sharp sound sliced through the silence, a twig snapping underfoot. Kellen's head whipped around instantly, his eyes narrowing, muscles coiled like a wolf ready to strike. From the shadows emerged a figure, one of his pack. Not a rogue, not a stranger, someone he had trusted. Kellen stiffened. You shouldn't be here, he said through clenched teeth. The figure stepped forward, a dark smirk on their face, eyes glinting with something I didn't want to name. I think you overestimate your control, Kellen. She doesn't belong to you. And she never will. A wave of dread washed over me. Kellen, who is that? He didn't answer. Instead, his body tensed, a low growl rumbling in his chest. The pack member circled us slowly, deliberate, predatory. You've broken the rules, Alpha, they hissed. You brought her into our world, and now, you'll pay the consequences. Leave her out of this, Kellen barked, stepping in front of me, his form radiating dominance, fury, and something wild. His eyes flashed amber, and for the briefest moment, I glimpsed the wolf beneath the human facade, primal, feral, ready to tear everything apart to protect me. The pack member laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. Protecting her? You're a fool if you think the pack will allow this. The council has decided she must go. And if you try to stop us, their hand flexed, claws glinting in the moonlight. You will fall first. Kellen's growl deepened, resonating through the forest like a living weapon. I will not let anyone harm her. Not you, not anyone. I could feel the tension, the raw power, and the history between them pressing down like a storm about to break. But before a fight could erupt, Kellen's hand gripped mine again, urgency burning through his touch. Run, he whispered, voice strained. Run, Lena, don't look back. But as we moved, a sickening realization hit me. The betrayal was deeper than I thought. The person standing against us, the one Kellen once trusted implicitly, they had been planning this for months, watching, waiting, lying, and now, the trap had closed. Behind us, the forest erupted into chaos. Howls, snarls, and the sound of claws scraping against trees filled the night. Kellen shifted partially, a growl vibrating from deep in his chest, the wolf pressing against his human skin, raw and untamed. I held onto him, feeling the pull of the bond intensify, a fierce, magnetic force that seemed to scream fight or die. Together. This isn't over, Kellen muttered between clenched teeth, amber eyes blazing. They've made a mistake, the biggest mistake of their lives. I nodded, gripping his arm tighter, my own fear transforming into something wild, defiant. Whatever the pack had planned, whatever betrayal had been set in motion, we would face it together, and I would not run, not anymore. The night had swallowed us whole. I ran through the forest, heart hammering in my chest, the chaos of the pack's betrayal still echoing in my mind. Behind me, Kellen moved like a shadow, silent and lethal, protecting me with every step, every instinct honed over years of hunting and surviving. The moonlight barely cut through the thick canopy, yet his amber eyes always found me, always pulled me back from the edge of panic. We stumbled into a small clearing where the remnants of the rogue pack had gathered, snarling and circling like wolves with a taste for blood. My stomach dropped at the sight. Kellen didn't even hesitate. With a guttural roar, he lunged forward, claws flashing, teeth bared. I wanted to move, to help, but I was human. I couldn't fight like he could, and every step forward felt like walking into a storm I couldn't control. Then one of them broke through the circle, faster than any human I could track. In that instant, Kellen's world seemed to slow. He shifted, muscles stretching, fur sprouting in dark waves along his arms and chest. His growl was a living thing, vibrating through the clearing, warning all who dared approach. He threw himself between me and the attacker. I froze, my breath catching, as I watched his body take the blow meant for me. The rogue sank its claws into his side, and pain radiated through him in a silent scream. Blood darkened his fur and ran down the forest floor. No, I shouted, my wolf screaming from within. My body moved without thought, pushing forward despite every ounce of reason, my hands trying to grip him, trying to pull him away from the attack. Kellen staggered but didn't fall. He whipped around, claws raking, fangs flashing in the crimson moonlight. The rogue faltered, growling, only to be thrown back by his sheer strength and speed. He turned to me, eyes blazing with intensity, amber and gold flickering like fire in the night. Run, he bellowed, but I couldn't. Something inside me had shifted too, and I realized I wasn't just running alongside him. I was part of the fight, tethered by the bond neither of us could deny. My pulse synchronized with his, every breath we took in unison, our instincts entwined. The rogue pack hesitated, sensing something deeper than strength or fear, a bond ancient and unbreakable, one that made the air around us crackle with energy. Kellen lunged again, faster, precise, taking down another attacker with an agility that made my head spin. But then a sharp pain cut through my side as one of the rogues managed to swipe at me, and I cried out, stumbling. Kellen was there in an instant, catching me mid-fall, his body shielding mine. His breath was ragged, his body slick with sweat and blood, but his eyes softened for a fraction of a second. "Lena," he whispered, his voice trembling, "I can't lose you." Tears blurred my vision, but I nodded, gripping his arm as tightly as I could. "Never," I managed, my voice raw. "I'll never leave you." And in that instant, something shifted between us, not just the bond of mate, but the unspoken truth of what we meant to each other. Fear, pain, and anger melted into something stronger, fiercer, and undeniable. Kellen growled, a low, threatening sound, and the pack faltered once more. He moved with precision, one attack after another, fangs and claws blending seamlessly with his human mind, yet his eyes always flicked to me, watching, protecting. Finally, the last rogue fell back, retreating into the shadows, their howls fading into the night. The forest fell silent again, the only sound our ragged breaths mingling with the whisper of the wind. Kellen sank to his knees, his body trembling, blood running from several wounds. But the moment his gaze met mine, every ache and fear in the world dissolved. He reached for me, pulling me close, and I wrapped my arms around him, feeling the warmth, the strength, and the danger all at once. "I can't," he whispered, voice breaking. "I can't survive this world without you, Lena. My wolf, my life, it's all tied to yours now." I pressed my forehead to his, my voice barely audible. "Then we survive it together, always." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt hope, fierce and unwavering. The bond wasn't just a chain, it was fire. Wild, dangerous, consuming fire that neither of us could fight, and neither of us wanted to. The forest, the moon, the shadows, they all seemed to pause in reverence to what we shared. In that moment, I realized that no matter the danger, the betrayal, or the darkness, we would face it together. And nothing, not the rogue pack, not fate, not even the cursed bloodlines could break the bond that had forged itself between us. Kellen rested his head against mine, and I could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong beneath the chaos of the fight. "You're mine," he murmured, almost to himself, "and I'm yours, no matter what." I smiled through the tears, letting the weight of everything crash down around us. "Yes," I whispered, "no matter what." And in that blood-soaked clearing under the moonlight, with the forest holding its breath around us, our bond was sealed not by words, but by blood, fire, and the undeniable truth of our hearts. The first rays of dawn barely pierced the forest canopy, painting the world in pale golds and soft pinks, but the night's terror still clung to me. Every shadow in the trees seemed heavier, every rustle a reminder of the pack that had sought to tear us apart. And yet, despite the fear, I felt something else, something warmer, steadier, and unshakable. Kellen stood a few steps away, his body still taut with the aftermath of the battle, his amber eyes watching me with an intensity that made my chest tighten. He was bruised, cut, and bleeding, yet he radiated strength, the kind of strength that demanded trust, even from someone like me, who had spent her life hiding from the world. "You're awake early," he murmured, his voice low, carrying a rough vulnerability I hadn't heard before. I tried to smile, brushing a strand of damp hair from my face. "I couldn't sleep," I admitted. "Too much on my mind." He took a careful step closer, the scent of him earthy, wild, intoxicating, filling the space between us. "About last night?" he asked softly. I nodded. "About us. About everything." Kellen exhaled slowly, the muscles in his jaw flexing. Then, without hesitation, he closed the remaining distance and took my hand in his. His touch was warm, grounding, a tether to reality and to something far deeper than I could explain. "Lena," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I need you to know something. I've tried to protect you, to keep you safe from all of this. From me. But the truth is," he hesitated, searching my eyes as if looking for permission to speak the words that had been burning inside him. "The truth is, I can't. I don't want to. I don't want to live another moment without you. Not one breath. Not one heartbeat." You're my mate. You've been from the start. My heart stuttered in my chest. The words were like a wave crashing over me, pulling me under. But instead of fear, I felt relief, a fierce joy I hadn't known was possible. I feel it too, I whispered, my hand tightening around his. Even when I was terrified, even when I wanted to run. My wolf, she always came back to you. Kellen's eyes softened, the intensity giving way to something tender and vulnerable. He leaned closer, and for a heartbeat, the world shrank until there was only him and me, the forest around us fading into a blur of gold light, and whispered, "Wind, I've waited for this moment for so long," he admitted, his lips brushing mine in the lightest, most cautious of touches. "I've waited to tell you, to claim you, to be with you. Not as a protector, not as a hunter, not as a beast hiding in the shadows, but as me, fully, and I need you to know, I am yours." Tears pricked my eyes, and I stepped closer, letting my hands rest against his chest. "And I am yours," I breathed, completely. The moment stretched, a fragile eternity suspended in the early morning light. Then, with a shared exhale, we sealed it not just with words, but with the undeniable pull of our souls. My wolf stirred within me, quiet now, calm for the first time in months, resonating perfectly with his. Kellen's hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing away a stray tear, and he smiled, a slow, breathtaking expression that made my knees weak. "No more hiding, no more running. We face everything together, Lena. Every shadow, every threat, everything that comes for us. Together." I nodded, feeling a sense of power and peace that I had never known. "Together," I echoed, my voice strong, unwavering, and in that moment, beneath the soft blush of dawn, we finally embraced what had always been ours. Not just survival, not just instinct, but something far deeper, a bond forged in blood, danger, and unspoken promises. Kellen pulled me into a tighter hold, lips brushing the top of my head. "I swear, Lena, no pack, no curse, no prophecy will ever come between us again." I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady thrum of his heart. "I believe you," I whispered, "and I'll fight for us, always." The forest seemed to exhale with us, the tension of the past nights lifting, replaced with the quiet certainty of something powerful and unbreakable. Our love was no longer hidden in shadows or whispered in fear, it was raw, blazing, unstoppable. The blood moon, the rogue pack, the betrayals they had tried to test us. But in the golden light of dawn, we were no longer prey, no longer hunted, no longer afraid. We were together, completely, and nothing could take that away. The forest trembled under the weight of approaching footsteps. Even in the fading glow of dawn, the shadows seemed to deepen, curling around the trunks of ancient trees like silent sentinels. Kellen's hand gripped mine tightly as we moved through the undergrowth, alert to every whisper of movement, every flicker of shadow. "This is it," he murmured, his voice low and steady, but there was a tension in it that made my stomach twist. "The pack. They've gathered everything for this. They want to test us, Lena. Not just me, us. Our bond, our claim." I swallowed, feeling the knot of fear and anticipation tighten. My wolf pulse beneath my skin, fierce and protective, but I could also feel the strength of Kellen's presence weaving into me, tethering me to courage I didn't know I had. The clearing ahead was enormous, encircled by massive stones etched with runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Members of Kellen's pack were there, some loyal, some hostile, eyes flashing gold, silver, and amber in the same breathless moment. At the center stood the council, their expressions carved with judgment and authority. Kellen's jaw tightened, and he drew me close. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Whatever happens, we face it together." I nodded, letting the warmth of his grip steady me. "Always." The council's leader stepped forward, a tall, imposing figure whose eyes burned with the weight of centuries. "Alpha Kellen," he intoned, voice echoing across the clearing. "You have defied the rules by claiming a human as your mate. By bringing her into our world, you have risked the balance of the pack and of the prophecy itself." Kellen straightened, his presence radiating power. "She is not a threat. She is mine, and she has chosen this as much as I have." A murmur of discontent rippled through the gathered shifters, claws flexing, tails lashing. The tension was a tangible thing, vibrating in the air like a live wire. The council leader's gaze shifted to me, piercing and unrelenting. "Do you understand what it means to enter our world?" I swallowed, stepping forward, the courage that had grown in the fires of the past nights carrying me. I do. And I choose it. I choose him. And I choose us. Whatever comes, I will face it together. The leader studied me, silence stretching, before finally nodding slightly. Very well. Then you will face the trial of the eclipse. The final test. Only through it will your bond be recognized or shattered. Kellen's amber eyes locked on mine, dark and fierce. Stay close. Don't let go. The pack formed a circle around us, and the air shifted, thick with anticipation. The eclipse had begun, the sun disappearing behind the shadow of the moon, turning the world into a dim, silvery twilight. A howl rose in the distance, the collective sound of every shifter gathered, reverberating through the forest. From the shadows, figures emerged, rogue shifters, creatures once allied but now enemies, their eyes glinting with hunger and malice. Kellen's muscles tensed, wolf and man poised together, radiating power and control. This is it, he murmured, pressing a hand to my cheek. Remember, nothing can break us, not them, not fate, not even the prophecy. Our bond is stronger than anything here. I nodded, letting his words anchor me as the battle erupted. Shadows collided, fangs met claws, and the forest itself seemed to tremble with the force of the pack's confrontation. Kellen moved like a storm incarnate, protecting me, his growls tearing through the air, every motion precise, controlled, and deadly. I could feel my wolf awakening fully, primal and fierce, merging with Kellen's strength. Together, we moved. As one, a bond forged in blood, fire, and trust, unstoppable in its ferocity. The rogue leader lunged, fangs bared, claws extended, but Kellen intercepted, spinning with lethal grace, throwing the attacker to the ground. I followed instinctively, sidestepping another threat and feeling the rush of power that came from standing by his side. Every strike, every dodge, every shared breath reinforced the bond we had sworn to protect. No fear, no hesitation, only trust, only fire. Finally, the last rogue fell back, defeated, and the circle closed, the council silent, the forest holding its breath. Kellen stood, chest heaving, eyes golden and intense, and pulled me into his arms. You did it, I whispered, breathless. No, he murmured, lips brushing my temple. We did it, together, and nothing will ever take this from us. The eclipse ended, sunlight spilling across the clearing, illuminating every figure, every scar, every fierce, protective embrace. The pack members, once doubtful, now knelt in acknowledgement, their eyes reflecting the respect and awe of those who had witnessed something extraordinary, a bond that could not be broken. Kellen held me close, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I let myself feel safe, whole, and unshakably loved. No prophecy, no rogue pack, no shadow of doubt could touch us now. We had survived the final eclipse, together. The first light of morning broke slowly over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rose, gold, and violet. The forest seemed to breathe with the colors, leaves shimmering as if each had been dusted with starlight. The lingering mist from the night's battle clung to the undergrowth, curling around the trunks of ancient oaks like ghostly fingers. Yet in the midst of this quiet beauty, the world felt different, lighter, safer, as though the tension and fear that had shadowed us for weeks were finally dissolving with the dawn. I stood at the edge of the clearing, Kellen's presence grounding me. His hand was still wrapped around mine, fingers interlaced in a grip that radiated both strength and tenderness. His amber eyes scanned the forest with a watchful intensity, but for the first time, the edge of danger was gone. His wolf rested. Beneath his skin, quiet, calm, a living pulse perfectly in sync with mine. We made it, I whispered, letting the words drift into the soft morning air. My wolf hummed in agreement, a quiet vibration of satisfaction and relief that spread through every fiber of my being. Kellen turned to me, his expression softened by exhaustion and something far deeper, a profound and spoken love. Yes, he said, voice low, almost reverent. But it wasn't just surviving the pack. It was surviving everything, every shadow, every threat, every fear. And now, Lena, you're home, truly home. I felt a shiver run down my spine, part awe, part disbelief. Home. That word had once seemed impossible for me, a human who had stumbled into a world of wolves, danger, and bloodlines she barely understood. Yet here, in the golden light of dawn, with Kellen at my side and our bond sealed by trials and fire, it felt right. It felt inevitable. The pack was gathering slowly around us. Some were loyal from the start, eyes reflecting relief and pride. Others had doubted, their expressions now softened by acknowledgement and respect. Even the council leader approached, a rare approving nod settling over his sharp features. You have proven yourselves, he said, voice carrying across the clearing like a gentle wind after a storm. Your bond is undeniable, and your strength, together surpasses any expectation. The pack accepts her, and you, Alpha Kellen, have honored the legacy of your bloodline. It is finished. Kellen exhaled slowly, a tension I hadn't realized had been holding him upright releasing in a visible wave. He turned to me, eyes bright and full of emotion. They've accepted you. Accepted us, he murmured. We're free now, Lena. Free from fear, free from threats, free to live as we choose. I smiled, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. And together, I added softly, he pulled me close, his lips brushing mine in a gentle kiss, one that carried the weight of all our battles, all our fears, and all the love that had grown between us. My arms wound around his neck, holding him as tightly as I could, unwilling to let go, unwilling to forget even a moment of the journey that had brought us here. The forest seemed to respond, a gentle breeze rustling through the trees, carrying with it the scent of pine, earth, and something unmistakably ours, the scent of belonging. The morning sun touched Kellen's face, highlighting the scars, the hard-earned lines, and the raw beauty of a warrior who had fought not just for his life, but for mine. We've survived so much, I whispered, tracing a finger along the line of his jaw, feeling the warmth beneath the faint bruises and scratches. And yet, it feels like the beginning, not the end. Kellen chuckled softly, a low, vibrating sound that made my chest ache in the best possible way. It is the beginning, Lena. The beginning of everything we've ever wanted, everything. I swallowed, feeling the knot of fear and anticipation tighten. My wolf pulse beneath my skin, fierce and protective, but I could also feel the strength of Kellen's presence weaving into me, tethering me to courage I didn't know I had. The clearing ahead was enormous, encircled by massive stones etched with runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Members of Kellen's pack were there, some loyal, some hostile, eyes flashing gold, silver, and amber in the same breathless moment. At the center stood the council, their expressions carved with judgment and authority. Kellen's jaw tightened, and he drew me close. Stay with me, he whispered. Whatever happens, we face it together. I nodded, letting the warmth of his grip steady me. Always. The council's leader stepped forward, a tall, imposing figure whose eyes burned with the weight of centuries. Alpha Kellen, he intoned, voice echoing across the clearing. You have defied the rules by claiming a human as your mate. By bringing her into our world, you have risked the balance of the pack and of the prophecy itself. Kellen straightened, his presence radiating power. She is not a threat. She is mine, and she has chosen this as much as I have. A murmur of discontent rippled through the gathered shifters, claws flexing, tails lashing. The tension was a tangible thing, vibrating in the air like a live wire. The council leader's gaze shifted to me, piercing and unrelenting. Do you understand what it means to enter our world? I swallowed, stepping forward, the courage that had grown in the fires of the past nights carrying me. I do, and I choose it. I choose him, and I choose us. Whatever comes, I will face it together. The leader studied me, silence stretching, before finally nodding slightly. Very well. Then you will face the trial of the eclipse, the final test. Only through it will your bond be recognized or shattered. Kellen's amber eyes locked on mine, dark and fierce. Stay close. Don't let go. The pack formed a circle around us, and the air shifted, thick with anticipation. The eclipse had begun, the sun disappearing behind the shadow of the moon, turning the world into a dim, silvery twilight. A howl rose in the distance, the collective sound of every shifter gathered, reverberating through the forest. From the shadows, figures emerged, rogue shifters, creatures once allied but now enemies, their eyes glinting with hunger and malice. Kellen's muscles tensed, wolf and man poised together, radiating power and control. This is it, he murmured, pressing a hand to my cheek. Remember, nothing can break us, not them, not fate, not even the prophecy. Our bond is stronger than anything here. I nodded, letting his words anchor me as the battle erupted. Shadows collided, fangs met claws, and the forest itself seemed to tremble with the force of the pack's confrontation. Kellen moved like a storm incarnate, protecting me, his growls tearing through the air, every motion precise, controlled, and deadly. I could feel my wolf awakening fully, primal and fierce, merging with Kellen's strength. Together, we moved. As one, a bond forged in blood, Fire and trust, unstoppable in its ferocity, the rogue leader lunged, fangs bared, claws extended, but Kellen intercepted, spinning with lethal grace, throwing the attacker to the ground. I followed instinctively, sidestepping another threat and feeling the rush of power that came from standing by his side. Every strike, every dodge, every shared breath reinforced the bond we had sworn to protect. No fear, no hesitation, only trust, only fire. Finally, the last rogue fell back, defeated, and the circle closed, the council silent, the forest holding its breath. Kellen stood, chest heaving, eyes golden and intense, and pulled me into his arms. You did it, I whispered, breathless. No, he murmured, lips brushing my temple. We did it, together, and nothing will ever take this from us. The eclipse ended, sunlight spilling across the clearing, illuminating every figure, every scar, every fierce, protective embrace. The pack members, once doubtful, now knelt in acknowledgement, their eyes reflecting the respect and awe of those who had witnessed something extraordinary, a bond that could not be broken. Kellen held me close, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I let myself feel safe, whole, and unshakably loved. No prophecy, no rogue pack, no shadow of doubt could touch us now. We had survived the final eclipse, together. The first light of morning broke slowly over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rose, gold, and violet. The forest seemed to breathe with the colors, leaves shimmering as if each had been dusted with starlight. The lingering mist from the night's battle clung to the undergrowth, curling around the trunks of ancient oaks like ghostly fingers. Yet in the midst of this quiet beauty, the world felt different, lighter, safer, as though the tension and fear that had shadowed us for weeks were finally dissolving with the dawn. I stood at the edge of the clearing, Kellen's presence grounding me. His hand was still wrapped around mine, fingers interlaced in a grip that radiated both strength and tenderness. His amber eyes scanned the forest with a watchful intensity, but for the first time, the edge of danger was gone. His wolf rested beneath his skin, quiet, calm, a living pulse perfectly in sync with mine. We made it, I whispered, letting the words drift into the soft morning air. My wolf hummed in agreement, a quiet vibration of satisfaction and relief that spread through every fiber of my being. Kellen turned to me, his expression softened by exhaustion and something far deeper, a profound and spoken love. Yes, he said, voice low, almost reverent. But it wasn't just surviving the pack, it was surviving everything, every shadow, every threat, every fear. And now, Lena, you're home, truly home. I felt a shiver run down my spine, part awe, part disbelief. Home. That word had once seemed impossible for me, a human who had stumbled into a world of wolves, danger, and bloodlines she barely understood. Yet here, in the golden light of dawn, with Kellen at my side and our bond sealed by trials and fire, it felt right. It felt inevitable. The pack was gathering slowly around us. Some were loyal from the start, eyes reflecting relief and pride. Others had doubted, their expressions now softened by acknowledgement and respect. Even the council leader approached, a rare approving nod settling over his sharp features. You have proven yourselves, he said, voice carrying across the clearing like a gentle wind after a storm. Your bond is undeniable, and your strength, together, surpasses any expectation. The pack accepts her, and you, Alpha Kellen, have honored the legacy of your bloodline. It is finished. Kellen exhaled slowly, a tension I hadn't realized had been holding him upright releasing in a visible wave. He turned to me, eyes bright and full of emotion. They've accepted you. Accepted us, he murmured. We're free now, Lena. Free from fear, free from threats, free to live as we choose. I smiled, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. And together, I added softly, he pulled me close, his lips brushing mine in a gentle kiss, one that carried the weight of all our battles, all our fears, and all the love that had grown between us. My arms wound around his neck, holding him as tightly as I could, unwilling to let go, unwilling to forget even a moment of the journey that had brought us here. The forest seemed to respond, a gentle breeze rustling through the trees, carrying with it the scent of pine, earth, and something unmistakably ours, the scent of belonging. The morning sun touched Kellen's face, highlighting the scars, the hard-earned lines, and the raw beauty of a warrior who had fought not just for his life, but for mine. We've survived so much, I whispered, tracing a finger along the line of his jaw, feeling the warmth beneath the faint bruises and scratches. And yet, it feels like the beginning, not the end. Kellen chuckled softly, a low, vibrating sound that made my chest ache in the best possible way. It is the beginning, Lena. The beginning of everything we've ever wanted, everything we've fought for. No more hiding, no more running, no more shadows that can touch us without our choosing. I leaned into him, resting my forehead against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat under my cheek. I never thought I could feel safe like this, I admitted. Not in a lifetime, but now, with you, it feels like I've finally come home. Kellen pressed a gentle kiss to the top of my head, closing his eyes briefly as if savoring the moment. And you are home, not just in the pack, not just in my arms, but in my life. You've healed more than you know, Lena. You've made me whole. We stayed like that for a long while, wrapped in each other's presence, letting the morning sun wash over us and the forest around us breathe in harmony with our quiet, shared heartbeat. Every trial, every betrayal, every danger had led to this, not just survival, but a union stronger than blood, stronger than fate, stronger than the world itself. Eventually, the pack began to stir with life again. Wolves shifted, some padding silently, others smiling with approval, their eyes warm with acceptance. Even the once hostile members now moved closer, offering subtle nods, acknowledging that what we shared had not just survived the trials, but had transcended them. Kellen tightened his grip on my hand. Come, he said softly, let's walk together. Let's claim this day, this life. No more shadows, no more fear, just us. And whatever comes next. I nodded, and together we stepped forward, moving through the forest that had once felt like a labyrinth of danger but now felt like a sanctuary. The morning sun gilded the leaves in gold, the air was crisp and fragrant, and for the first time, I could truly breathe free, whole, and loved. Kellen's hand brushed mine as we walked, thumb tracing circles along my skin, and I felt a warmth that went deeper than any physical touch. A fire that belonged to our bond, a tether that would never be broken. This is it, he murmured. Our dawn, our forever. I smiled up at him, my heart swelling with love, hope, and the thrill of endless possibilities. Forever, I echoed, and beneath the morning sky, with the forest alive and the pack united, we stepped into our new life. No shadows, no curses, no fear, just love, fire, and the promise of every sunrise to come. The world had tested us. The packs had challenged us. Fate had thrown every obstacle in our path. But we had endured, fought, and claimed what was ours. Kellen pressed his forehead to mine one last time, a smile in his amber eyes that mirrored my own. Together, always, I whispered, letting the words seal our promise as the sun rose fully over the horizon, flooding the forest with light, hope, and the quiet certainty of a love that would never be broken.